everyone. Welcome to the first session of Women in GI webinar series. My name is Carolina Olano. I am professor of gastroenterology in Montevideo, Uruguay, and Secretary General of the World Gastroenterology Organization, and I am very happy and very honored to moderate this session. Why are we here today? Well, our aim for this webinar series is to build an inclusive community of passionate professionals who promote the involvement and advancement of women in gastroenterology. We are sure that these global conversations are empowering. We empower each other because we can share lessons learned, and even if we disagree, we can challenge each other's ideas in a safe and supportive environment. So we brought you wonderful speakers for this first session from different areas of the world. First, Professor Asma Shukat. She is a Robert and Mary Glickman Professor of Medicine, Director of GI Outcome Research, Professor of Population Health at the New York University Grossman School of Medicine in the USA, and she is the chair of the WHO Young GIs Committee. Then we have Professor Nancy Rowe, Professor of Medicine. She is the Richard Cup Chair of Hepatology, Chief of the Section of Hepatology, Associate Director of Solid Organs Transplantation at the Rush University Medical Center in the USA, and Chair of the WHO Hepatology Interest Group. We also have Professor Barocha Mahachai, Professor and Academic Advisor at the Center of Excellence in Digestive Diseases at Thammasat University in Thailand. She leads the WHO Promotion of Education in Asia-Pacific region. Finally, Professor Naeem Amrani, Professor of Medicine at the Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy at Mohammed V University in Rabat, Morocco. She has served as head of Hepatogastroenterology Department in Rabat, and she is the Associate Dean of Research and Cooperation at the Rabat Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy, President of the Moroccan Society of Gastroenterology, and President of the Pan-Arab Association of Gastroenterology, and she is the WHO past President and current Chair of the Nominations Committee. At our final discussion, Professor Guilherme Macedo will join us as a male allyship presenter. He is the WHO President and head of the Gastroenterology Centro Hospitalar e Universitário São João, University of Porto in Portugal. We would like to receive all your questions through the Q&A box. Please don't use the chat box for this. You can use the chat box to tell us who you are and where are you from, but remember to use the Q&A box for your questions. And so we will begin with Asma. I would like to ask Asma, as a woman in GI, how do you build your brand while mitigating risks?
Thank you so much, and Carolina, and I'm so honored and appreciative to be part of this wonderful panel. And it's so great to see so many wonderful women that are so accomplished, and hoping we can inspire others. So thank you for asking about my journey, and I would love to share some of the things that I've learned, hoping that it can help younger GI, particularly women, as they advance the field. You can advance my slide. So building your brand is everything about what you enjoy. And that's perhaps the first thing we should all think about, is what truly inspires us, what gets us out of bed every morning, what is our North Star, our guiding star. And then once we know that answer, follow it. For me, I realized through my training that it was a variety of clinical work where I truly get my ideas and inspirations, the research, which is putting them to research questions and then getting answers that can change care, and education, providing education to the trainees and our next generation, because truly we need to pass on what we've learned, and that's the only way to continue to improve our field. Also, these things have a lot of frustrations with them, as we've all encountered through our careers, but they lead to a joy and excitement of discovery. And that's truly another thing that motivates me. The other thing that truly motivates me are my colleagues. And anything, especially medicine and being a woman in medicine, it can feel like a solo activity or a solo sport, and it's not. So one of my words of wisdom is to find your mentors and maintain relationships throughout your life. And also the ability to mentor and collaborate. Just locally, but now, thanks to
Asma,
can
we
you
have
advance the slide?
Connections problem. Can you continue?
Yes. Can you go to the next slide?
Okay.
And, I put this picture up because it's a very nice representation, and both Carolina and Naima, as well as Nancy, are in this picture, along with many other extremely accomplished, successful women. But, this highlights that we can all come together. And these are women from many different countries and regions across the world. We came together in December in Dubai. And this is, the camaraderie and the peer group that you want to seek, establish, and then maintain, which will truly keep you going. Next slide. And then my last few tidbits, having held many leadership positions, including the ones I am in now, is you should always start with knowing your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Again, leads back to what is your true motivation for doing what you're doing? And then the how and what will fall into place. And we often make the mistake of going in the reverse order, but remember, always start with your why. Also, see the best in people around you. They're not your competition. They're truly there to help you. And that perspective will really lead you to success. Ask for feedback along your journey very often, because this can truly help you see through your blind spots and make you much more successful at what you're trying to accomplish. And remember, as my children often say, teamwork makes
Where?
Can
Asma?
you hear Asma? I cannot
We
hear.
are having some connections problem. Can you hear us, Asma?
Can you?
Asma, can you hear us?
Carolina, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, now we
Now
can
it's
hear
okay.
you. We had some problems with connection. So thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to ask you about networking. That is important. You mentioned that is important, networking for us to build our brand. And we know that the men's networking activities, such as viewing sport or participating in sport, are very important to facilitate some relationships. What are the women's limitations for networking, and how can we improve our networking activities, for example?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. One area we fall short is being able to network effectively. And there's a lot of barriers that we can think of that get in the way. So again, knowing what those barriers are and trying actively to overcome them is something we should be doing. So networking can start within your own institution, reaching out in your own division, department, and then also across other departments and collaborating across different departments. And then you can extend that circle to working with people across universities in your city, region, country, and then also attending some of the national meetings or regional meetings that we go to, but then keeping those connections alive and connecting with individuals even afterwards following up on projects, proposing ideas, and seeing what comes to fruition. And then finally, what's changed a lot since we were training is the ability to send emails or connect via Twitter or other social media and seek out opportunities. And I've certainly had a lot of young women in GI reach out to me and hopefully been able to connect and help them. So make use of that opportunity. And there's no reason why anybody listening to today's webinar couldn't reach out to any one of us after this panel. So that's where you build your skills and then you just practice them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Asma. Well, now is Nancy's turn. Please, Nancy, tell us what work/family balance means to you. Have you experienced any issue trying to balance your work and the rest of your roles as a woman? And if so, how have you handled them?
I can start by saying I was a little bit late today on balancing my family life activities. And I will open a little bit with some background. So work-life balance has kind of been relabeled as work-family integration. I think probably recognizing that balance never really happens, and it's really that you have to integrate these things. Work-family integration strongly parallels work satisfaction as well as life satisfaction. So we recognize that the ability to integrate all these various aspects in your life, and work-life balance isn't just like your family. It's also some of your extracurricular interests, the things that you want to do that you may not be able to find time to because you're struggling with your work consumptive hours. We also know that women fall prey to this a lot more because we do probably pull more family activities, and this burnout is strongly linked to poor satisfaction, and it actually decreases productivity. And so those of us that try to do more and get burned out are actually less productive, both in our family integration as well as our work integration. Medicine is traditionally prone to this. If you think about, what we're told when we're going through medical school or when we're preparing to be a doctor, at least traditionally, we work long hours. Patient care comes first. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Your patients are always going to have the first say, and our schedules tend to be rigid. This is more common with physicians than multiple other fields. We know that work balance is challenging among all employment spectrums, but medicine is really prone to this. And there was a 2021 JAMA article that really highlighted the fact that female physicians had a lot worse work-life integration over men, and that this was largest in the mid-career group, so individuals the age of 45 to 54. And so that you would think that it's going to be a problem early, but actually it's when you probably are trying to get more leadership responsibility, trying to launch your career more, that you're finding it's much more challenging to integrate all those other things in life that you need to do. It's also shown in a Medscape survey that work-life balance was the main challenge for not just women, but everyone. But women found that 64% of us said that this was our main, issue with our happiness and our work satisfaction. And that was over 43% in compensation. And we already know that women make less than men, but despite making less than men and knowing we make less than men, it's that work-life balance that was really our number one issue. And 16% really complained of career development. So we recognize that a lot of this webinar is centered around ways that we can be more successful, but it's this work-life balance that really drove most of our satisfaction against two other things that we recognize are big problems. But there are solutions. A lot of this is flexibility, and I think institutions are recognizing that making your works, staff happy is going to lead to better productivity, and practice efficiency and mentorship are also key components to that. So I do have some slides, and I will just talk a little bit about my bio. I really did not intend to be a physician when I started. You can see there's a picture of me with my mom. She wanted me to be a piano player, and so I went to school for piano performance. I graduated with my MA in neuroscience because my college didn't give MSs, so that was a master's in art. I went to med school because I really didn't have any other opportunity to do much with my neuroscience degree. And although I thought I would be a neurologist, I eventually ended up in hepatology. And so this was all just kind of pure luck. I did not like neurology, but I did not like neurology as much. And there happened to be an opportunity in GI, and that just naturally put all those little building blocks in place. And I ended up as a hepatologist. And this was all because of mentorship and sponsorship. So I just happened to be in a time where people were giving me good advice, and it ended up being incredibly useful. And so it's now my turn. And so when we talk about, how we can integrate our life with our work balance, it's important to have examples of people who do this successfully. So although I think that you can have multiple ways of being successful in your extracurricular life, I think that it does help if you can demonstrate that you do more than just work. And that doesn't have to be having children. You can do more than just work in lots of other ways. One of my good friends is a very accomplished artist. Another one is written a series of children's books, all while being physicians. And so there are other ways than just having, family. But I think that it's important to demonstrate that you can separate from medicine and do other things. And so at this time, I'm currently the chief of my section of hepatology. I'm the hepatology interest group chair for WGO. I'm the editor for clinical liver disease. And so I'm building a lot of leadership roles. And I put some examples of some of the key mentors in my life. My husband on the right, Dr. Lupe Garcia Sao, who really has been a strong advocate for women in leadership roles at AASLD. And then Donald Jensen, who helped really steer me into a path of career development, getting me interested in viral hepatitis. And so I think that if you go to my next slide, it's really when you can be brave enough to pursue your passions. I would not have been a very good piano performance player, so I'd make a much better hepatologist than a pianist. And identifying your resources, knowing how to lean on these individuals. I think we're often feel guilty when we reach out for help or advice, but really that's kind of what we're here for. And a lot of us, as we've gone farther in our careers, are very happy to give you advice or to help navigate things that we might have done, even if you don't choose to take our advice. I think that it's always helpful to get different opinions, and then to remember that you do have to pay it back. So if you are a mid-career, more senior individual, don't forget the people that helped you get there. And it's really important for us to steer our junior colleagues into more successful pathways. All right, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nancy. While we are waiting for new questions through the Q&A box, please remember to send us the questions. I have a question for you. The return to work after maternity is a critical moment for women, and how can institutions and colleagues help those women that lack family support?
That's great. And so I have to say that I was at University of Chicago when I had my second child. My first child I had at the very end of my fellowship, and I delayed coming to work because my child was ill. So that was not a standard path and not what I anticipated doing, but my child got botulism when she was 6 weeks old. And so I had to take some time off because she just had a lot of health needs. With my second child, I was in a place where the institution allowed me to become part-time so I could adjust my work schedule, but I remained full-time on a promotional schedule. So what that meant is that I didn't have as much call and clinic responsibility, but I was still expected to do all the things I needed to be promoted on time. And University of Chicago is very generous about resetting that clock with every child, whether it was adopted or not adopted. And so I was able to reduce my work effort twice because I have 3 children. And that allowed me to keep my clinical productivity appropriate, but still write papers and keep on my research and do things allowed my academic career. That may not be the right answer for everyone because that did come with a pretty significant pay cut for me. I was able to do that because my husband has is a physician, has a nice job. So that might not work if you're the sole bread bearer or if you are the main producer in your family. But there are creative ways that institutions can do that. I've also seen in practices, especially in family practice and pediatrics, but becoming more creative, that women can job share. So 2 women can be like one full-time person. So it allows you to kind of cover each other. And of course, that doesn't have to be a woman. A man could do that also. There is increasing, recognition that men need paternity time, and they are integral parts of our family. And so we do like to make sure that we are including them. But there are creative ways of either practices or institutions allowing people to keep on an academic track, but still truncate their hours.
Okay, thank you. We will continue talking about this at the end of the session. And now we will talk about what is holding women in GI back from leadership, including cultural differences and discrimination. Please, Barocha, could you expand on this?
Thank you, Carolina. It gives me great pleasure and it's a great opportunity for me to participate in this very important webinar in Women in GI. First of all, I think the leadership role of women in GI vary among countries to countries. I managed to survey about 80 we had about 80 respondents from GI female colleagues in Asia, and find that it seemed to be related to cultural differences, and not only in different countries, and also it vary among different regions of the world. And I would say the reason for obstacle of women in leadership. First of all, they are committed to childcare and family activities, and they have to prioritize between family welfare and work responsibility. And in our region, Asia Pacific, social expectation of women to look after the family welfare and childcare in society. And besides, the problem obstacle of women in leadership could be lack of leadership skill and lack of role models, and maybe lack of motivation for women to become leaders due to their other responsibility. And besides, women have less opportunities for career advancement and promotion. And besides, higher authority may prefer men in leadership position because with their high performance and proficiency. So I think that's a reason why there's an obstacle of women in leadership, especially in our region. And so I may continue that most people feel that the solution to maintain this work-life balance in Asia Pacific is to hire someone for childcare and household activities, or count on support from partners and family members. And I think this may be possible in this region because the wages are not so high and still can be affordable if you can find someone that can work for you. And some people opt to work part-time job, and they're willing to go for less pay to do this kind of balance between family welfare and work life.
Thank you, Barocha. Thank you very much. Do you think that formal mentorship programs for female faculty, for example, could be a good option to minimize these barriers that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think the mentorship program, I think have been initiated, and depend if you can find good mentors who are willing to do it. I don't think it would be easy and straightforward. Still mainly depend on cultural difference, but you can try to do so, whether it become successful or not. but it's a good idea. You need someone who are willing to sacrifice and do a lot of mental and do the right mentorship, you know, and depend on the interest of the one who get trained, that they're willing to be trained, and as long they have a willingness to become leaders, I think that's very important. They need a motivation to do so as well.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, now is Naima's turn. And I would like to ask Naima to tell us how to make your voice recognized and heard at the table. Naima.
Thank you, Carolina. I'm really very happy to share this question with all of you. So as you may know, in 2019, I was elected president of WGO. Being the first woman to hold this position is a prestigious honor. I was also proud to be the first woman president of the Pan Federation of Gastroenterology few years before. In fact, it was my election as the first woman president of the American Society of Gastroenterology that opened my eyes to the real role of women in GI and the challenges they are facing. For example, some felt the position of president would be more appropriate for men than women. At that time, I understood that I was facing a big challenge, both for myself, but also to highlight and elevate the role and the voice of women in GI. Today, the challenges facing women are yet to be overcome. One of these challenges is this question, which is very important: how to make your voice recognized and heard at the table. But before sharing my point of view, I would like to ask you, have you ever sat silently while your colleagues put on the table an issue that concerns you as well? Have you ever mentioned an idea that have been ignored but have been later picked up by someone else, a man in general, and get credit? Have you ever joined a work meeting wondering how to make your voice heard on a specific point that is important to you and to your organization? It can be frustrating to feel like your voice is not heard. However, ensuring your voice is recognized is very important for your fulfillment. Indeed, as a woman, speaking up can be difficult. You feel like your ideas won't be taken seriously. Unfortunately, these fears are often justified, and research demonstrated that women speak less than men in meetings, despite the perception they speak more. More than that, women may be left out of important discussion or decision by their male colleagues, who mostly prefer to share with colleagues most similar to them. That means with other men, of course. So what to do? There is some ways to be heard. First of all, and this is very important, trust your voice and remember that you have right to be heard. Know exactly what you want to say and when. At the same time, think about the likely objection and be ready to respond. Keep it short with no apology. Start and end your contribution with conviction. Think about your language and make it more muscular. So instead of saying I think or I feel like, jump right to your point. If not, it can make you sound less confident. For making your voice heard in specific situations, don't accept to be interrupted. By the way, women are more likely to be interrupted. So if someone interrupts you, don't yield the floor. Say something like, I am speaking, and continue talking. When you have an idea you would like to share, lay out your idea and why it matters. Just be aware, the more concise your message, the less time you need to hold people's attention to get your voice heard. At the same time, consider your delivery and be aware that 90% of how you are heard is not what you say, but how you say it. Your eye contact, your posture and voice, such as volume, tone, and speed, affect how people hear you. For example, if you say something too quietly or with unsure tone, you might sound like you are asking for permission, not demanding to be heard. It's also important to know who you are, what you have to offer, and be proud of it. Speak up, be bold in the meeting and tell your aims and visions. It's important to not accept people drag you down and do not hold yourself back. Don't try to behave the way someone else expects you to. Be true to yourself, authentic and confident. Finally, learn to let go of being liked. Women often have a need to be liked, but that will not help you achieve your goals if it comes to having your opinion accepted. Now, let's see what we have done at WGO and we are still doing in this matter. As the first woman president of WGO, one of my main objectives was to increase women visibility and participation within the organization. Consequently, we moved from 5% to more than 30% women nominated in various committees and leadership positions. These numbers will continue to increase as we move forward. Another objective was to provide networking opportunities for women to share their views and make their voices heard. In addition, WGO, as a global federation of over 119 member societies, is committed to ensuring gender and global representation within the organization. This may also help to make the voice of women heard. I believe we are on the right track, but still a long way to go because change is fast, transitions are slow. However, we must remain aware that equality and diversity in GI can only be achieved by fighting stereotypes and creating supportive networks for women and all underrepresented groups. So now more than ever, it's time for women to know their values and make their voice heard with confidence. The expertise they bring are evident. The diversity of ideas and skill sets they own are widely seen as key drivers for the benefit of the whole society. To conclude, my advice to every woman is to keep in mind that seat at the table is not given, it is taken. So trust your voice and remember that you have right to be heard. Don't walk away with things unsaid. We all have fantastic ideas in our heads. Don't accept people drag you down. Don't hold yourself back and never give up. Think about the role you play and the responsibility you have for yourself and for the society. Be true to yourself and confident. Your voice deserves to be heard. Finally, making your voice recognized and heard at the table gives you a great opportunity to build influence. So it's vital that you get your voice heard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Naima. Thank you very much for this presentation. I would like to ask you, do you think that the imposter syndrome, when an individual doubts their skills and talents and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud, could also be a barrier for women to make their voice heard at the table?
I didn't hear the first part of the question.
If the imposter syndrome could be also a barrier for women to be heard at the table?
Yes, of course. This is one situation between many other situations. Anyway, I think the problem facing women is how to make her voice heard and recognized. This is the problem. But as I have said, maybe how you say that, how you talk, it's very important. Not only what you said, but also how you say what you want. Never give up. Be confident. Yes, follow your dream. Follow what you want. And I think the only way is like that. But there is many challenges we are facing. We see this every day at several levels, but we have to be aware and to do what we have to do. If some of us arrive, there is no problem for the others. They must arrive. They must succeed.
Okay, thank you very much. And before our general open discussion, it's time for our male allyship presenter, Professor Guillermo Macedo, that I introduce him as the World Gastroenterology Organization President. Please, Guillermo, share your vision of women in leadership at WTO.
Well, first of all, Carolina, thank you very much. This is a wonderful webinar, outstanding presentations, and I think it is very inspiring for all of us to accommodate all these ideas, which are really important, and I think it's time for change. Of course, my reflection is somehow connected with our role at the WTO. We know that, and it is known that many steps have been undertaken, struggling for gender equity in medical education, clinical assistance, and scientific research workforces, particularly in gastroenterology. We have been experiencing and witnessing a continuous growing motivation from women towards the cognitive and practical world of gastroenterology. So more and more women are applying for graduation and training in all our fields of interest, from endoscopy to liver health, IBD or neurogastroenterology, you name it. There is an obvious rising of the proportion of women embracing these areas. So the underrepresentation of women that we are still facing in many national societies, especially at the leadership levels, is for us a driving force so that we can foster mentorship and support, trying to improve competence, enthusiasm, and confidence in women wishing to advance in their careers. Beyond cultural or regional differences, the perception and acceptance of women as leaders must be emphasized. Women should not feel they have to fight against all odds. They need to master some communication techniques to be able to demonstrate and to show their presence and their power. And we must provide recognition and visibility to women in GI. Of course, we do have to increase the awareness of the growing number of women able to act as role models and highlight their achievements. WGO, with its widespread and global footprint and with a time-honored, inclusive and diverse mindset, may provide the perfect stage for women in leadership. As a personal remark, I'm very fortunate to be able to play different roles in providing allyship to women. As a head of clinical and academic department, facing everyday young female trainees, fellows, and specialists in charge of different areas, as president of a national GI society where we praise equity, from the board of the executive to the different committees and organization of educational events, as WGO president, where we acknowledge a multitude of cultural and social landscapes, and of course, as a husband of a GI leader, which provides me a unique and continuous feedback and insight of the needs and perspectives that women would privilege. So I'm in a great position for understanding what is needed for transformational leadership development and realize that there are still many miles to go before we sleep. Perhaps the best ingredient for thriving, keeping the balance between family needs, leisure, and professional burden, is providing adequate time management strategies, supporting personal self-knowledge and self-organization, and creating the adequate emotional environment to allow a proper identification of women's own strengths. I think that's a very simple view, but I think that could make a difference if all males could have this approach.
Thank you very much, Guillermo, for your vision. And well, we can now now have our open discussion, and we have some questions or comments. One is about why mentorship may be catching up, sponsorship is lacking. What do you think about this comment?
Yeah, that's a very spot on comment, and I did respond in the comments also. So there have been surveys and research done on this topic, and while women are catching up in mentorship, it turns out they still lack in sponsorship, very much so. And the ways to overcome that are for leaders to recognize women and think of, female junior faculty for opportunities as they come up. And second, for women to proactively ask, because sponsorship can come from, both male and female leaders, but being proactive and letting the leadership know that you're interested in this opportunity, and if not now, when it opens up. Other examples are, would you be kind enough to write me a letter of support for my application for fellowship as a way to advance in a society, and other items like that. So I think it takes more than one approach to overcome this barrier.
Great. Nancy, Naima, what do you think about this?
I think I would also advocate what has been coming up in a lot of the comments, that you have to be a little bit proactive in your quest for mentorship and sponsorship. And there was a comment about how men may not advocate for their women colleagues as well as their male colleagues, or that they may, expect women to not want or be followers more than active participants. And I think that whether that's subconscious or active, you can get around that by asking, right? And if the person you identify as your mentor or your sponsor, if you ask them to advocate for you and they say that you're not ready, or then you might want to be a little introspective and wonder why. I mean, did you try to do something and you didn't get it done on time? Or were you asked to do a number of things and you said no every single time? I mean, we occasionally are not our best advocates. And if the answer is no, that you really are ready to advance and you really are ready to take on more, you need to advocate for yourself and say why. And if your mentor or sponsor isn't pushing you in a way that you want, you need to find another one. That's what these great networking opportunities are, is that you don't need to feel that like this is a marriage that you cannot break, right? That you need to find people that are going to be strong advocates for you. And if your friend group isn't doing that, then you need new friends.
Great.
Yeah. I totally agree with Asma, what she said about mentorship and about sponsorship. It's the role of every good leader, man or woman. If you're a good leader, man or woman, you can help women to realize what she wants to realize. But this is very important, to listen and to encourage and to help her to make her voice heard at the table.
Well, we have another very interesting question about, I would like Guillermo and Barocha to have your opinion on this. Is there consistency of inducting women in advanced endoscopy training fellowship globally? And barriers for women in advanced endoscopy training? What do you think, Guillermo, Barocha?
Barocha will go first, or you want me to start? Go ahead.
First of all, there seems to be a shift in working force. I mean, could be all over the world. In Asia, most countries have women gastroenterologists, or even in medical school, women should be a working force because they hold about over 50% up to 80%. So as GI trainees, there seem to be more women than male GI fellows. So I think it should be open up for any opportunity if they're interested in endoscopy, they can do so. And I think it's depend on their qualification and performance, how they select, not based on gender at all, and it's just a matter who are the who apply for the positions, and but it depends if they have similar qualification, depend who will be selected. That's how I feel that. So women will get more and more into any position in GI.
Yeah, I agree that there is a generational problem. And that's why I mentioned that nowadays we are facing, hopefully, more and more women coming to training to all the let's say the procedures, even advanced endoscopy. Why not? I mean, we do have very important leaders in advanced endoscopy that we would like them, women, to be role models for other women. So that's why in our departments, in my department, for example, we do have prime endoscopy leaders, women leaders leading the whole process. And why is that important? Because we think that it's not only the role model, it's the environment. If you create an environment where everything is, let's say, acceptable, easily taken, with no roadblocks, I don't think that would be any kind of problem. Look, when you get to Hogwarts, you see immediately that you're going to face a place where magic is being done. So if you go to somewhere when you see women performing at the high endoscopy levels, then you see that that's normal. That's the rule, and that's the regular thing that we would like to improve. We want everyone to be committed with this spirit of getting women in leadership roles, especially at the ground levels in your own departments. You don't need to be just a leader in being the president of a society. Of course, that is very important, but on a daily basis, you should acknowledge and recognize the extremely important role that women have in the different GI departments. So again, it's creating the appropriate environment so people would understand and recognize easily who is in charge and who is the leader.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much about that comment. And we have another comment or question about, again, that women lose enthusiasm to leadership role because of family commitments and how to handle them. We talk about, but we can expand more about that.
Yeah, I can cover that a little bit since that was some of my original task. I think that the first thing is that you need to kind of be organized and prioritize, right? So that it's hard to be a parent and realize that you may not be at every single 2 p.m., tea time at your kid's school. But if there are some that you want to go to, make sure you build that into your schedule and that's protected. And then recognize that you're not a bad parent if you don't make all of them. Trying to, get help, right? If your yard or your housework is something that's challenging, don't feel guilty and outsource those tasks so that when you do come home, you are, you can enjoy your family and you aren't trying to do some of the things that someone else could have done for you. And a lot of it is kind of guilt, right? You might think that you need to have equal turns in the soccer carpool, but as a working physician, that isn't necessarily where you need to place your guilt. Maybe you want to make sure you're at the games and you aren't carpooling and, get all the other carpool people a nice bottle of wine, not enough to give them alcoholic hepatitis, but some way to kind of offset the fact that you're using your friends in a way that allows you to integrate your family more. And I think that you have to reach out to people that have a similar situation and see how that they did things. Like trying to, if I tried to compare myself to someone who had 2 nannies and lived in the city and had only 1 child, that wouldn't really reflect what I needed. And so trying to find someone that has a similar situation and similar needs can give you a bit of idea of what your resources could be.
Asma, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Nancy. And, it's a balancing act, and which is why kind of planning is really crucial. So there's definitely times when family needs to be your first priority, particularly, when the children are infants or need a lot of time and attention. And then other things may take a back seat. But as long as you know and you're working towards something that will eventually come, then it's totally fine. Then there'll be other times when you'll be able to devote time and energy to work. So I would say, at any given time, you're kind of juggling both things, and they take priorities in different orders, but over time it averages out. So what I want to reassure everybody is this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. You're in this for your life. So a few years here or there, even if you have to, take a break or be completely disconnected, it is definitely not the end of your career. You can definitely come back and be working at it. And in that vein, another important thing to do is if you are looking for leadership opportunities, you have to plant the seeds many years in advance. So that would be a good time to say, look, in 5 years, I see myself as a director of endoscopy, a chief of a division, and then ask your mentors, your chiefs, your sponsors, what can I do to get there, so that you have a roadmap leading you there. And truly, everything eventually balances out. The other advice would be ask for help. Raising children is not solely, even though primarily it is a mother's job, but it's truly a community effort.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. We have some comments about gender pay gap that is real everywhere. Naima, what do you think about the gender pay gap? You are muted, Naima.
I want to add something about.
Oh, yes, of course.
This
Yes.
question. Of course, you have to organize yourself. Of course, you have to do a lot of things by yourself. But there is a very important point we didn't discuss: the support of the other part of the family, the support of the husband, for example. In my situation, I think I have achieved a lot of things, but I have never been able to do all I have done without the help of my husband. So this is very important, and we have to put this also at the table, because many of my colleagues or people that I know didn't achieve what they want because they were not helped by the rest of the family, and especially by their husband. And of course, this is, but maybe Guilherme can say something about this, because it's very important, and we are 50-50, we are 50% men and 50% female. Why the question is not the same for men than for women? I don't know if you understand what I mean. For men, it's normal, it's totally accepted. If he has to do something, the family will help. But in the opposite, it's not always true. It's not always possible. And I want to have the point of view of a man. I know that he is different than the others, but anyway, I want your point of view about this.
We need to have, of course, what you mentioned is really important, because it's the type of approach that it's a win-win situation. We as males, we can only understand our success if we consider the female allyship. So it's the other way around. So as long as we recognize and we acknowledge this type of win-win venture, that's fine. the problem is on a daily basis that, in fact, sometimes men should be much more aware of women's needs. That's for sure, because there are so many little things that men are not aware of that sometimes they should be, they should take the conscience of what's happening around them. That's important. And by the way, taking the previous notes and remarks that were made, I think WGO, and I have to put my hat of president of the organization, is in a wonderful place to settle something new for everyone, or at least not new, but at least providing some tools to everyone, especially females. Don't forget, we do have the Train the Trainers leadership and management courses, which they are not, let's say, made for males. They are made to create leaders, to teach the tricks and tips for becoming a leader, a successful leader. And that means that all women that want to pursue their career in getting to be leaders, I think it would be very profitable for them to look for the next TTT leadership and management course, which, by the way, hasn't already a fixed date. But anyway, this is a regular program of Train the Trainers course, because we imagined that this is an unmet need for many, many people.
Great. Barocha, what about the gender pay gap in your region in general, but especially in your region in the Asia Pacific? Is it real?
About discrimination.
So yes, a discrimination in pay. In the salaries, it is a difference in salaries.
I think if they're the same job, there's no difference in pay, except if they choose to do part-time job and work less like a work less days, so then they get lower pay. But in general, there's a standard fee for as a salary in most situations. Only in some. I think in some countries that may exist salary differences between male and female colleagues. That exists in some countries, but not to most of the countries, I would say, in Asia.
Okay, well, we are at the end of this first session, and we are very happy for all our the participation of all of you, the audience. And of course, I would like to thank very much to the presenters, to Millie, Zachary, Marisa for the administrative support and the enthusiasm, especially for the enthusiasm, and to all of you for the participation, of course. I would like to remind you that this is a quarterly webinar series, so you will receive an invitation for the next session in June, that you will receive it soon. And I would like to remind you that a recording of this webinar will be available at WGO's website, and an email with the link will be sent to all registrants, and also a survey about this session. Well, and finally, I would like Millie to, this is what Millie would like to share with all of us. And let us use this quote of Malala Yousafzai to inspire us to keep speaking out, and even better, to taking actions to help more women in their path to leadership in gastroenterology. Thank you very much, and see you next session.